late Chief Ernest Shonekon, Nigeria's former interim head of state, and the line in state will be today, and we'll bring you details as we get them. Now back to our conversation for this morning, and let me just begin by just saying a few words about journalism. It's a very interesting profession. You know, it somewhat emboldens you to do things that you wouldn't have imagined, and you also get to know why. Joining us to discuss the times, life and times of the late interim head of state, Ernest Shonekon, is seated right here with us, Shola Atere. I would never have dared to address him by his first name, but here today I'm emboldened by journalism to do that. Shola Atere is former Executive Director News, Nigerian Television Authority, and former spokesperson to Chief Ernest Shonekon. Thank you very much, sir, and forgive me.
No, it's my pleasure. That's the nature of journalism, broadcasts and newspapers, you know, print. There's no formality, you know.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for understanding. Also in the studio here is another big boss, Ben Shemang. He's Director News, Voice of Nigeria. Always nice to have you with us.
Thank you very much. My
and
pleasure.
He was also State House correspondent in the Doden Barracks in Lagos and Abuja, of course, Presidential Villa. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
All right, seated in the studio here with us also is Jide Ojo. Jide Ojo is a familiar face. He's a friend of the house, a public affairs analyst. Jide, it's always nice to have you with us.
Thanks for having me, Claire. I'm also emboldened to call you by your first name.
All right, we have another guest who's joining us this time via Zoom. He's Senator Ibrahim Ida Sadauna Kassina. Senator Ida, pleasure to have you with us on Good Morning Nigeria today.
Well, thank you very much. It's nice having you. And hello, Shola Atere. Shola was my classmate at the university, so it's nice seeing him now. Good morning.
All right, gentlemen, once again, our pleasure. And by the way, Shola Atere was also at different times and for many years State House correspondent for the Nigerian Television Authority at Doden Barracks and also at the Villa, the ASO Villa here in the Federal Capital Territory. Gentlemen, of course, our conversation is on the late Ernest Shonekon. He sometimes gets to be defined more by the role he played in government for a period of 11 months combined. Yes, he was head of interim national government from August 26th to November 17, 1993. But before then, he had been named head of the Transitional Council. Yeah. That Transitional Council was to midwife, according to the military president, the conclusion of the transition program. As head of the Transitional Council, he was head of government, while General Ibrahim Babangida was head of state. But our guests are here to provide further insights into the personality we're talking about. Shola Atere, let's begin with you. You worked closely with Chief Ernest Shonekon at the seat of power. What kind of person was he?
Well, first of all, let me acknowledge Senator Ida too. You know, good morning, my dear Senator, because we read law together actually, you know, at the University of Abuja. Chief Ernest Shonekon started as chairman, Transitional Council. As a matter of fact, you know, we were the first occupant of the Federal Secretariat, the first part of it, you know. There was nobody there. That was the office because it was head of government, while General Ibrahim Babangida, as you rightly pointed out, was the president. So Chief Shonekon was more or less running the government, you know. Well, he had been in UAC, and I didn't work with him in UAC quite all right. But when he came in and I was appointed as his spokesperson, I was trying to study really who he was because of an incident that happened prior to that and when he was still in UAC. we used to come from Dodon Barracks to Abuja before the seat of government moved to Abuja on December 12, 1991. Chief Shonekon, one day, he was going back to Lagos from Abuja here. He came for an event with regards to the economy and so on and so forth, and as the chairman of USC, So he was going back to Lagos solely, no aid, no nothing. Then the General Ibrahim Babangida, IBB for short, had some events here, and NTA was not yet fully on ground in Abuja. So we still were transmitting from Lagos then. So I packed all my pneumatic tapes, walked up to him on the tarmac as he was going to board, inside an envelope. Gave it to him. I just discussed with him that, sir, could you please help me deliver this thing at our Victoria Island office? The man just collected the thing. Unfortunately,
that's Chief Shonekon.
Yes, to tell you how humble, even at that height, as USC chairman, that is an international conglomerate, so to speak, He collected the thing. As I turned back, I saw that the envelope it was torn. Some of the tapes fell down. And he just picked the thing and he bought it. Within the next 2 hours, they just called me from Lagos that they've received my tape, So I now was studying him to see whether that humility was real. And behold, let me be honest with you, he was a complete gentleman. In fact, when he came into government, I was a little bit skeptical whether he'll be able to maneuver because of the politics involved in governance. You understand? But being the kind of person he was, very straightforward. He sets targets and he will want to achieve that target. He was very blunt, as I said in that news report. He did not play politics, while in government. Because I remember one day, one organization came, a service organization in the medical field, medical sector. The usual thing, they will want to get government funding and so on and so forth. The man told them point blank, he said, look, your services, you could render it even in the whole of West Africa and be generating hard currency. Not even the Naira and Kobo, that's our currency in Nigeria. You'll be making a lot of money. And that makes sense to me. You understand? It's just a matter of extending. At least Nigerians do go abroad for medical treatment. So why couldn't you too invite, or encourage others in West Africa instead of traveling abroad to come to, because as at that time, some of the hospitals in Nigeria and medical facilities, they still had good equipment. You understand? I mean, I'm talking about 1993.
It was about 30 years ago now.
Exactly. So it made sense to me. And those people, eventually they went away, though they were dejected that they couldn't collect the government funding as usual, but they changed their orientation.
Okay,
completely.
Let me pause here. I listened to the story you told about the humility of the late Chief Ernest Shonekon, and it was interesting to me. I found it quite interesting, and but I want to ask you, you don't just go to the airport and then spot anybody and hand over. There must have been, you must have studied it. What attracted you? What made you decide to choose him?
Well, the thing is, that used to be my practice. Anywhere we travel to then, I'll just go to the airport. I will psych up somebody, that look, this person is likely to be responsible, because I was holding tapes that contained things about the head of state, the president of Nigeria, military president of Nigeria. That's a grade A thing, material. So you cannot just hand it over to just anybody, unless there's a force majeure, you know, that the unexpected happens. So it has to be somebody that you either know or you don't know the person, but you perceive that person to be a highly responsible fellow, so that your tapes don't get lost or they don't get there in time for transmission that day, because dole, it must be transmitted by 9 p.m.
All right, Shola, thank you very much there for that recall of the personal encounter with the late Ernest Shonekan. We'll come back to you.
But that's not what influenced my appointment to him later.
No, but the appointment came at least about a year or so later.
No, more than that.
Yes, yes.
2
So,
years.
yes. So, we will drill into that further in the course of the conversation. Ben Shemang, you also were State House correspondent, but let's not make this a correspondence affair just in the meantime. Senator Ibrahim Ida, whose Zoom connection to us is still fine. Senator Ida, tell us, in your opinion, who was Chief Ernest Shonekan?
Well, first of all, I have to thank you for having me. Now, I knew Chief Shonekan before he became head of state, but just casually, because I visited his office when he was the chairman UAC. But my first real contact with him was in February 1993, when we had the first economic summit. At the time, he was the head of the interim government, and I was a director in the Ministry of Finance. But my real contact with him, and when I came to know him as a leader, as a human being, and as a good Christian, was from September 1996 to September 1997, when we had the Vision 2010 program. He was the chairman, and I was the secretary, and also the coordinator. Now, I worked very, very closely with him.
Senator Ida, sorry, I probably was too quick to acknowledge that your Zoom connection to us was fine. It looks like there's a low bandwidth challenge. If you're okay, I'm sure the engineers will connect you back to us.
Committed to Nigeria, very respectful to. Well, you see, I said quick. Now, he was a very committed Nigerian. And one thing surprising about him, a very humble person.
This Zoom doesn't do us.
Well, you have a trove of information on the late Ernest Shonekan, Senator. So let's see what advice engineers will give to you to boost your bandwidth, and then we'll come back to you. So let's return to the studios now. Ben Shemang, Director News, Voice of Nigeria, and also former State House correspondent. What are your lasting memories of Chief Ernest Shonekan?
Honestly, his commitment to Nigeria, to stitch the country together. Recall that when June 12 was annulled, you could see Northerners running back to the north from south, Southerners running to the south, because the drums of wars were all over the place. Now, Nigerians needed to be told, look, stay where you are, work where you are. Shonekan was in charge. And you could see some clips even coming from NTA, Eversian Voice of Nigeria. I remember this phrase, he is in charge. You know, the idea was to work for democracy, but again, the military had to strike. Unfortunately, I found myself caught up in that kind of crossfire. What do I mean? Suddenly I got a call from Dodan Barracks. Colonel Fred Chijoka then said, we need you in Dodan Barracks. Then my director, General Yaya Abubakar then, is led. Oh, have you committed anything? I said, no, I doubt. No. Then I just decided to take my recordings just in case. I landed there, they said, stop, stay around. Then they called Mohammed Labo, Executive Director News, NTA, called Shupoba Balola, the cameraman, then Haruna Idris of Everseen. Then around 7 or 7:30 p.m., Abacha had come to Abuja, and he overthrew Shonekon, locked the villa and returned to Dodan Barracks. And of course, the rest was an announcement. He had overthrown Shonekon, and the last paragraph, he delivered that speech in anger because of the problems Nigerians were facing then. He ended it something like this: any attempt to test our will will be met with maximum force. And because of the speed in which he delivered that coup speech, Mohammed Labo said, look, excuse me, can you reduce the tempo? I take it slowly. And of course that was done. But again, we are discussing Shonekon. Shonekon indeed was committed to one nation. And if you look at his background, as a lawyer, I mean, he felt things should be done legally and due process followed. If you also check the background of the wife, of his family, the wife, Madam Margaret, was not concerned throwing weight around as to, I'm first lady. No, how many people knew she was even a civil servant? It was never in her. Neither would you see the children saying, oh, I am the children of His Excellency, the president or the chairman interim. No, it was not there. So we had already a family people could follow, unlike in some instances where some people feel we are from the first family. You never saw that in Shonekon. All he could do was Nigeria first, and he stood by it till he was overthrown, even at that short regime.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you for your opening remarks. Jide, I know you also have memories. As at the times we're talking about, I don't know where, I think I was still in secondary school. So much of what I know, of course, is through stories like this, and of course, by reading. What do you have to say about the late Ernest? What feelings did you get, even from his calm mien, which everybody has talked about?
Thank you, Claire. Good morning, Nigerians. As at the time, he was interim head of government. I was in the university. I was in the University of Lagos in 1993. Of course, I took part in the protest for the validation of June 12th election across the Ikorodu Road. Students for whom we are. So my memories of Chief Ernest Shonekon was, he came to serve at a very critical juncture of our national life. How do I mean? It takes a statesman to accept to head a government that was denied his kinsman. If he was very provincial, he would never have taken that appointment. Because that's what many Yorubas felt he should do. There are many Yoruba leaders that say, oh, you betrayed Abiola, you shouldn't have taken his appointment, you know he was robbed of his victory, why did you have to do that? But the man wasn't provincial, he wasn't sectional. He was looking at the national outlook as to how do we stitch Nigeria together. It's a critical juncture. Don't forget, he has been in government as the head of the Transitional Council. And the lot fell on him, maybe because he was already holding that kind of esteemed office. General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida felt it's just normal and natural for power to transit to him after he purportedly stepped aside on August 26, 1993. So, he's also a lawyer. He was a lawyer, rather. And he's a very accomplished gentleman. By all means, he rose through the ranks to become the chairman of a business conglomerate, United African Company, UAC. which was an octopus business conglomerate with hands in. I mean, today we talk of all these snacks. I don't want to mention the popular snacks manufactured by UAC, which was before you have all of the current ones you have. And so
no, it will be no advertisement. I mean, it's nothing. It's just by the way.
You know, the popular gala was your gala. The popular gala was manufactured by UAC, and that was the first snacks many Nigerians used to. Growing up, particularly when you are caught in traffic, that was the quick snacks you can have to hold off hunger. So you know, he has seen it, or it's not like somebody he was born in Lagos. He rose almost all of his active life was spent in Lagos, but it was destiny that found him. Because I think there must have been something that the military saw in him to have invited him to come and chair the transition committee. And he believed them. And that was why he served in that capacity. And you could see that even after he was betrayed by the military by being forcefully removed, he never gave up on Nigeria. He still went ahead in 1994 to set up Nigeria Economic Summit Group, which is still existing today, giving economic advice and thinking through policy directives for government. So it tells you about his belief in the oneness of Nigeria. I recall that a few years ago, he was in Abuja with Janadiya and a host of other former head of state to do a carol song. I don't know how many of us remember that. Mm-hmm. They did a carol song around maybe 2017 or thereabout, with our Vice President Yemi Osinbajo also featuring in that short video clip. Also, he believed in Nigeria, he lived in Nigeria, he worked for Nigeria, and it was a huge success by every means, every parameters you may want to use to appraise his personality as well as his accomplishment, either in business or in politics.
Jide Ojo, thank you very much. Since we're discussing the life and times of Chief Ernest Shonekan, it's like a historical account, as it were, of his role both in the UAC and ultimately in the leadership of Nigeria. You made reference to one of the very well-known products of the UAC. Now, it's also important to mention this because in 1986, the UAC launched an outlet which then became a chain that set off, some other things. That's called Mr. Biggs. It was launched on Marina, where you used to have the Kingsway stores. That was also one of the accomplishments at that time. Now, we understand that our Zoom connection to Senator Ibrahim Ida is back. If we see him on the screen, then that will be just Ida. Senator Ida is actually back to us via Zoom. And there's another guest who is joining us. If Senator Ida is there. All right, you can see him on the right side of your screen. Senator Ida, thanks. We're going to have to pause you, but also introduce another guest before we come back to you to continue from your recall of your encounters with the late Chief Ernest Shonekan. And that other guest, because he's a very well-known public intellectual, Professor Patu Tomi. Professor Patu Tomi, the Professor of Political Economy and Management expert, is also chair of the Center for Values in Leadership that is based in Lagos. And I might as well equally add, he's president of Jacksonites Worldwide. Jacksonites, as they call themselves, are graduates of the Department of Mass Communication, University of Nigeria, Nsukka, which was the first school of journalism to be established in Nigeria. Professor Patu Tomi, welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you so very much. Pleasure to be able to join you.
So, Prof, we're going to pause you and then go back to Senator Ida. Senator Ida, please continue from where you stopped with a little recap how you first met Chief Ernest Shonekan and your experience with him during Vision 2010. Well, it looks like the elements are up against us this morning, but we shall overcome. Let's go over to Professor Patutomi. Professor Patutomi, let's have your impressions of the late Chief Ernest Shonekan, business magnate, corporate titan, and former head of government and also former head of state.
Now, and then in his relationship with the people that, a collection of about 250 people, he practically knew everybody, everyone by name, and he related with everyone. And during that period, I also got to know him as a mentor, because really, I would say, I was a permanent secretary at the time, but he mentored me. Throughout that year, not a single day did he accost me for doing anything. If I did anything wrong, he will advise me. So honestly speaking, Chief Shonekan was a man of the people. And one thing I would also like to highlight was his relationship with General Abacha at the time. Everybody or everyone will think that there will be a sign of animosity between them. But I would say this, at least they enjoyed an excellent relationship. And Chief Shonekan never, for one moment that I was with him, did he ever talk negatively about anybody, least of all the leadership of the country. His ambition in life was to see Nigeria to become a greater country. And that was why, even after we had submitted our report, he offered to spearhead the implementation of the report. And Pat Utomi can bear witness to how hard, very, very hard, Chief Shonekan worked. At that time, he was about 70 years old, but not a single day did he miss a plenary session or any, and he guided us very, very well. So the only thing we see, I think Nigeria owed a lot to that person. And he had friends in both South and the North. And one day I asked him a question, how did he come to know these people? And he said that in the course of his work, he related with them and they became his personal friends. There are so many people that took him as a friend, so many people that took him as a father.
We hope we'll get back connectivity with you and return to you to conclude your thoughts. That's Senator Ida. But let's bring in Professor Pat Utami, who's also joining us. Kingsley had earlier asked you to share your memories of the late Chief Ernest Shonekan. Also, give us some of the values you have of him, in your contact with him.
Thanks so very much. There are two perspectives I'd like to offer, especially because we don't do a very good job of capturing history in our country. I think I have a duty to talk about these perspectives. One is from enterprise. The other is from the relationship between the public and private sector in making Nigeria work. Let me start from enterprise. Chief Shonekan, he led a conglomerate at a time of transition. Now, people don't recognize sometimes how challenging that can be. The UAC Group was an organization that built strength from resources that were available to it in a time when essentially an import substitution strategy was being adopted by the country. That meant that if you had the resources and you had might, you could hide behind tariff barriers to build businesses. And the UAC Group expanded rapidly based on that model. Then there was a challenge of access to foreign exchange, and organizations had to become more focused. Chief Shonekan began the process of transition from being a diversified conglomerate to more focused organization for the UAC Group. That was when UAC Foods, which has been referred to in this conversation, became a very critical part of the thrust of UAC. UAC Foods, UAC Properties, from a time when UAC was in everything, tractor and equipment, office equipment, all of those, began process of shifting, which happens to enterprises. And it's not the easiest time to manage a company. And he managed the UAC group at that time of major transition. That's on the corporate side. And I think I owe it as a teacher of business to speak to that very important aspect. Because in these kind of situations, what tends to happen is that this kind of conglomerate is patching the roof here, patching the roof there, and goes into a retreat, what I like to call corporate surrender. But I think that Chief Shonekon managed that transition quite well. I was privileged, by the way, to work with him. He was on the very first board of the Lagos Business School. And in those early days, as their companies struggled, they gave their bit to trying to set up an institution like the Lagos Business School to facilitate the training of managers. But let me come to the government. I heard earlier, I think Mr. Joe was talking about how he set up the Economic Summit Group. That is also a very important part of our history that is misunderstood because even the NESG had to rebuke the Director General for not having enough of the history. How did the NESG come about, or this relationship? Back in 1985, the Aga Khan Foundation
Professor Tommy, you will have to exercise a great deal of patience with us. So we see that you're probably also on the move, and so that's affecting your Zoom connection. So when we get back to you, you will take off from the narrative you were giving about Chief Shonekon's role in the formation of the NSG. But if you are back right now, we can take you. All right, so let's come back to our studios. Shola Tere, this is getting more interesting in terms of the many parts of the late Chief Ernest Shonekon. What more would you like our viewers to know about him?
Well, a lot had been said about him, you know. One thing you cannot remove from him is seriousness, you know, in approach to business, and which translated into his role even in government. He was very focused and very determined, and for Chief Shonekon to have come back after being overthrown by Abacha's regime, to have come back, to come and serve in the economic, in forging a strong economic policy, you know, for the government and invariably the country, says a lot about his personality. That the man was not a selfish person, you understand. You know, he's not provincial, he wasn't provincial, you know, otherwise, and he wasn't harboring hatred against anybody. He comes across like somebody who has a plain mind, you know, just trying to ensure that things work well, just trying to ensure that, you know, the economy of the, because whatever we do, even the political system, if we don't have a strong economic base, we are just joking, you understand. He was much more concerned about a strong economic base for Nigeria. That was why he was able to come back and work even with the Abacha government that overthrew him. In the office, you will discover that Chief Shonekon, maybe because of his private sector experience, he was very, very accountable. And he never believed in over-bloated, you know, not that he was sacking people, not that he intended sacking people. There was nothing of such a discussion because we were his personal aides, you know. But he just believed that once 6 people are doing a job, you know, the usual thing in the Nigerian governance is, you know, a job that 6 people could do. They may, for political reasons, bring 10, 15 people to do it. So once you have 6 people doing a particular job and they are doing it effectively, he doesn't mind, you know, those people doing it and for them to be well remunerated, you know, encouraging them. And he was a very hard worker in the sense that he walked throughout the clock. You know, those of us working with him, we knew how our energies were being sapped. You know, we worked very late into the night most of the time. Very hardworking and always cool temperament. You know, you cannot harass him. He doesn't feel harassed. He doesn't feel depressed or anything like that. So he was able to achieve a lot within the little time that he was head of interim national government and the period I worked with him as the head of state. You know,
you know, just to say a word or two about your last statements. I know that someone wrote, you know, tributes about the late Chief Ernest Shonekan, Ifeanyi Mbanefo, and this is what he had to say. He said, "No other Nigerian had so entirely borne the anger of his people with equanimity, and no other Nigerian leader has borne deliberate and massive misinformation against him without flinching." And it just goes to support your, you know, what you said.
Yes, you know, because you see, Chief Shonekan, I always tell people, he came to make a sacrifice, just as Jide and Ben alluded to initially.
Let's pause you a while. We understand that our correspondent Abolade Salami is ready, you know, to give us information. Abolade is joining us live from the venue of the line-in state of the former interim head of state. Abolade, over to you.
Thank you so much, Claire. I'm live at the residence of the former interim head of government, that's Chief Ernest Shonekan, in preparation for the line-in state. Here at this residence, we have presence of dignitaries. Just a few minutes ago, former head of state, General Yakubu Gowon, came in, is right inside the building to pay also his last respect to Chief Ernest Shonekan. We have so many dignitaries that are inside paying their last respect. And we also have here in his residence here in Ikoyi, we have senior military officers who are also here and the live band from the military, just to ensure that everybody that are here are coming to pay their last respect for the late Nigeria's head of interim government, Chief Ernest Shonekan.
Kinsley, go ahead.
All right, Abolade Salami, let us have a sense of how long the line-in state would last and thereafter what happens.
All right, it is expected to last for 2 hours from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. And we're told that when that finishes here, they're going to move the body of late Chief Ernest Shonekan to the Ikoyi vaults, that is the Ebony vaults, and they are here on standby to move the corpse when it's exactly 9 a.m. That's the information the families give to us.
Abolade, also talk to us about the you know, solemn music in the background. We hear that, and you know where the line-in state is actually taking place.
Yes, like I said earlier on, we have the military band here that they are here to just give us cool rendition to make sure that guests that are here to pay their last respects are going in, and we have here also seated top senior military officers that are also here to pay their respect, their last respect to Chief Ernest Shonekan. While the condolence register is also open for those that are coming in. We had this just a few minutes ago, General Yakubu Gowon, before going in to see the corpse of the late Chief Ernest Shonekan. He had to also write down little things that he can express for the for former Nigeria's interim head of government, that is Chief Ernest Shonekan. Dignitaries are pouring in, while some are leaving, some are going in. But the military band are here just to give us full rendition to ensure that the environment is calm, and while everybody are here in sober reflection of the deaths of late Ernest Shonekan.
All right, correspondent Abolade Salami joining us from the Ikoyi residence of the late Chief Ernest Shonekan. Thank you very much. Probably we'll get back to you before we wrap up Good Morning Nigeria today. Once again, we appreciate your reporting live from the residence where Chief Ernest Shonekan is lying in state. So back to our studios and hopefully also to our two guests with us via Zoom. We'll continue our conversation on the life and times of Chief Ernest Shonekan. Well, how does one probably understand this? Is it the Nigerian thing, for instance, that once you step into the waters of politics, your performance or perceived performance in that terrain oftentimes becomes the way you are evaluated? Because sometimes when you read some commentators reviewing the life and times, I read one acerbic and sometimes misleading opinion piece the other day. One was in two parts. People don't seem to remember Ernest Shonekan for who he was before stepping into government for 11 months and thereafter who he became. Ben Shemang, I mean, you are in the public arena. Why do we tend to have this tendency?
Yeah, you see, once a man or woman throws the heart in the ring, it's like you've surrendered your rights, you surrendered your privacy, and you have also said you want to serve. Therefore, there has to be a scale in which you have to be measured. And that measurement, of course, you score either an A or you fail, depending on what side or who is grading you. But we do know, yes, there could be people who would always say, Shonekan failed. How? How will you, as an Igbaman, receive wrongly what belonged to an Igbaman rightly? That's talking of Shonekan versus Abiola. But again, if you look at the position of Shonekan, you actually know that he was indeed a man that should be put on a proper scale, give him his rightful place. There has to be a niche created for this man. What do I mean? I mean, a man came on board when Nigeria was just almost rather collapsing, and to stabilize a place. In terms of what you call a stable polity, you could see that he was never a man outside government who would trouble any sitting government. Every Council of State meeting, he was always there to proffer solutions, how Nigeria would move forward. People would have thought that he would have nothing to do with Abacha, but there he was. And I want to tell you, in Dodan Barracks, even when Abacha was Secretary of Defense, people would come to say, look, remove this Shonekan. Nigeria will be worse than Bosnia and Herzegovina put together. So there were people that prompted Abacha to overthrow this man who indeed meant well for this country. So if people, Kingsley, begin to say, no, the man did not perform very well, I tell you, under the turbulent environment, Shonekan did the best he could do for Nigeria. He never gave up, and up to the point of his death, he believed in this oneness of this country called Nigeria. So when people write their history, of course, we have to bear in mind that history at a point is subjective, depending on who is writing from what angle. So Shonekan was it.
All right. Jide, in your earlier remarks, you made a statement and you asked a question and invariably answered it somewhat. But I'm returning to you because you said you didn't know why Chief Shonekan was chosen or why he accepted, the offer to head the government at the time. It's a basis for questions that have been raised, whether he actually understood, the politics at the time.
Well, Claire, Shonekan obviously wasn't a politician. From all that we have heard and read about his life and times, he was a technocrat. He was a lawyer. He was, yes, a lawyer, a private sector person, a business guru, a boardroom, player. And of course, there is an element of politics in boardrooms too, but not on the scale of when you are serving a country. And I wouldn't know, I think there was an article, there was a news report about IBB saying why I chose Shonekon, but I didn't get to read it. I just saw the headline. Maybe he would have been in a better position to say exactly what they saw that made him bring him to head the transition committee. But I'm only saying the man should be commended for accepting to serve. I was just putting out what majority of the Yorubas felt about his accepting to serve as the head of interim administration. You heard what Chief Abiola said as an Egba man, and of course, we also know how, you know, it is said in local parlance that Egba meji o kin jara won niyan. That means two Egba people don't argue with each other. But on this scale, we saw arguments between Abiola and Shoneka, and between Shoneka, Abiola, and Obasanjo. You know, but it's allowed. One thing I think we also need to flag was the attempt. One, Shoneka released political prisoners who are incarcerated by the military when he became head of government. He also attempted to review 3 draconian decrees that was promulgated by the military. He didn't succeed, but he did make attempt to have those draconian decrees reviewed. And of course, he made a lot of effort at uniting the country. Like has been pointed out, somebody who was ignominiously removed from government, who some other people will say, never again will I have anything to do with these people. We know those who have absented themselves from the Council of State meeting ever since they left office, or sparingly attend. But this man will still come. He said he was chairman of Vision 2010. He was also very instrumental in setting up the Nigeria Economic Summit Group. These are legacies that I think we should benchmark his personality against. Not exactly the 90-something days he served as head of interim government, or the 11 months, as Kingsley put it, that he served in government, so to speak. But the man lived 85 years. For me, he's an accomplished personality. He lived his dream. He was one of 6 children. Nobody else heard of who the other 5 children were. But here, he is a man of destiny. His name resonates. For whatever reason, he rose through the ranks in a business conglomerate, became the chairman of that business conglomerate, and also destiny threw him into governance as head of government. And he did his bit, whether he succeeded. But it has also been said that part of the reason why he couldn't achieve much while he was head of interim administration was that he was placed under the military. He wasn't fully independent to exercise the full paraphernalia of office, because he still has to technically report to the junta who appointed him, which was why it was easy for General Sani Abacha to just shut the door against him and said he's been removed.
Okay, Jide Ojo and the other guests, thank you very much. We're going to have to take a short break, but while we are still on the subject of Chief Shonekon's foray into politics, it will be useful to provide some further background as to how, not necessarily why, Chief Shonekon got into government. General Ibrahim Babangida had a political transition program after he came into office, shunting aside General Muhammadu Buhari in August 1985. He had a transition program, starting off with the setting up of the political bureau, and the initial impression was that he was going to hand over in 1990. That date was then shifted to 1992. Now, at the beginning of 1992, the country had a diarchical arrangement. In other words, you had both the military and civilians in power. You had elected officials at the state level. You had civilian state governors, deputies who were also civilians, and you had state houses of assembly. And then at the national level, you had the National Assembly, Senate, and President. That's how Iyorchia Ayu became Senate President. Now, when you had that arrangement, there was also a decree that constrained the jurisdiction or the powers of the National Assembly, the so-called no-go areas on which they could not pass laws. Now, the transition continued, and you were supposed to then have elections for the presidency, because that was the only office that was left. But you had primaries that were cancelled. Jakonde, Yaradua participated. They were all cancelled. Persons were disqualified. And then the goalpost was then shifted from 1992 for transition to 1993. There was a lot of tension in the country at the time. So how do you mollify politicians? How do you reassure Nigerians that this transition will be okay? Do you get an apolitical person to come and then be in office? That's how Ernest Shonekan got his name tapped to become chairman of the Transition Council in January 1993. And then we'll continue the story from there after this short break.
To the right. Mila, you go to your left.
Thank you for the rejections. That taught me to keep striving. Thank you for the long hours. That taught me discipline. Thank you for the knockdowns. That taught me to bounce back. And for the unexpected victories, that taught me to never give up.
Please welcome Dr. Succeed.
Thank you for making me who I am.
The Digital Switchover project, which is commonly referred to as DSO, which entails television channels switching from analog to digital broadcasting, is one of the biggest projects embarked upon by this administration. Branded as Free TV, offers its viewers about 60 digital channels, including sports, music, movies, and news. The federal government has licensed about 23 set-top box manufacturers. 7 of them have started production, employing several thousands of people. We've made it now compulsory for all stations in Nigeria to only broadcast productions made in Nigeria for products which are produced in Nigeria.
We are all Nigerians. Against all odds, we shall and must remain united. We may have our challenges, our problems, and setbacks. However, together we shall overcome them all. What doesn't break us shall make us stronger. This is the mindset that shall bring peace, progress, and prosperity to our beloved country. Do not let tribal and religious sentiments govern how you think, act, or feel. Don't be influenced by those who want to destroy our precious national unity. Everybody who is a Nigerian is your brother and your sister. This is the mindset of the new Nigeria. It is also the mindset that we must all adopt. Let us support each other in creating the Nigeria of our dreams. This message is from the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
Government of the Federation.
Just a brief scene from the line-in state. We'll return to Abolade Salami as soon as we establish contact with him. But back here to continue our conversation, Senator Ida is waiting. Please kindly, we do apologize for the interruptions in our Zoom connection. We hope this time around it will be smooth. But please continue your contributions and take with it. I had asked the question if the Chief Ernest Shoneko understood the political dynamics at the time in the Southwest, before accepting the offer to become interim head of state.
Yeah, first of all, I want to make a correction. I have seen that even the media is making a mistake of referring to Chief Shoneka as the head of the interim government. Now, Chief Shoneka served this country in two capacities. He was head of the interim government up to the time that President Babangida stepped aside. From that time on, he became. So to refer to him as head of it at one time, but by the time he left, he was the head of state, both de facto and de jure, even if the workings in did not allow him to operate well, but he was the head of state. So I think it's even the media, it is a mistake to be referring to him now as the former head of interim government. He headed it before. That is one. Secondly, Economic Summit as group was actually started in 1993 when he came in as the head of the interim government. And then the country was really sliding. The two very important economic variables, interest rate, exchange rate, were going down. And he came in and then brought in the private sector to join the public sector to find a way forward. And that was the commencement of the Economic Summit in February 1993. Now, to get back to what he was, apart from being a decent human being, a man of the people, he also had humility in him and also the ability to, if to use this Nigerian term, I think to me he was really a detribalized Nigerian, because his best friends and confidants were not the Yoruba people, at least the way I saw it. He may have his relations. And one thing he told me that really, I asked him, when UAC was divesting, why was it that you were always selling the properties to the people of the environment? For instance, all the properties of UAC in Kaduna and Kano were sold to the people from the north. He said that it will be a disservice to humanity for him to bring somebody from elsewhere. Now, I have said this to show you the type of person he was. But let me also say this. You see, when we had the Vision 2010 program from 1996 to 1997, everybody thought that it was an Abacha agenda. That is absolutely false. From the period, Chief Shoneka never for one moment accepted to go to the villa to be directed or to accept any brief. So he was a very pious person. And because of his long relationship with the private sector and the public sector, he was able to really drive the terrain in such a way that everybody was satisfied. And I can say this with sincerity and deep conviction. 70% of what happened at the Vision 2010 program was Chief Shoneka's doing, in terms of the arrangement, in terms of the guidance, and in terms of settling of disputes when they arose. Now, another thing was this. I can say Abacha held him, whatever their previous relationship, Abacha held him on a very, very high esteem. because he never allowed anybody, and I could cite example, to either look down on or talk down on Chief Shenekan. And even when he left the scene, he was very mindful of his role as a national leader, because I remember that in 2006, he was in Tokyo, and the governor of Katsina State, the late President Eradua, requested me to get Chief Shenekan to come and declare open a Katsina State Economic Summit. He was in Tokyo, but he came down all the way. He finished and he went back. Now, to show you that his commitment was not either to a section of Nigeria or to a tribe of Nigeria or to a part of Nigeria, but to all Nigeria. To him, the whole Nigeria was a home. So really, in the loss of Chief Shenekan, Nigeria has lost a leader, a guide, one who was prepared to sacrifice everything. And I can say this, by the time we are doing the Vision 2010, he was confiding in me that contrary to what people will think, he was never settled. There was a rumor that he was, when he left, he was settled, given some money. He told me very clearly that it was a lie being propagated by his political enemies to tarnish his name. He was a humble man of humble means, who was in a position to make all the monies in the world. But I can say this, to the best of my knowledge and to the best of what he told me and what I observed, he was a person.
Abolade Salami, who is in Lagos, is right now with former head of state General Yakubu Gowon, who has paid his last respects to the late Ede Shonekan at the Ikoyi residence. Abolade, our correspondent, you have General Gowon. Increase the volume, cameraman. You have.
Hello, sir.
Looks like again we are having some technical issues. We'll sort that out and then return to. Okay, General Gowon is right on now with our correspondent on the right side of the screen.
Really, the nation has lost a great patriot. The nation has lost someone who had lived an exceptionally good and fruitful life. The death of Chief Ernest Shonekan is certainly a loss that the nation can ill afford at the moment. I knew him. He was working with the UAC in those days, and he did all his, he did exceptionally well, and of course, later on, became even the head of the UAC. But I know him more closely when the Lord called on him, when he was called upon to look to take care of the nation at a most difficult time, and he was vilified, unfortunately vilified, for having to do something that someone had to do it. And I think it is God that said that He is the one to do that job, and he did it exceptionally well. And he had to leave it unceremoniously, but I think he left with his head high, and a noble thing. And he did something for the nation, and ensured the nation at least continued. And of course, we work closely in the Council of States, and his contribution has been exceptionally great. And I would like to say that the nation must honor him as a patriot, as someone who did exceptionally well for the nation. And myself, my wife, we are here to to condole the family and to join in the worship to see him off. And we wish him, may God grant him peace. May God grant his soul everlasting rest. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Okay.
That's it. You just heard from the former head of state, General Yakubu Gowon, who is also here to condole the family of late Chief Ernest Shonekan. It's back to you in the studio.
All right, thank you very much, Abolade, for that interview. General Yakubu Gowon is on record as Nigeria's youngest head of state. He was head of state from 1966 until 1975. Now, back to the life and times of Chief Shonekan. Senator Ibrahim Ida sought to make some corrections and maybe we'll make further amendments or clarifications or re-emphasis. One, we did say at the beginning that Chief Ernest Shonekan was chairman of the Transitional Council. He was appointed in January 1993, and it wasn't until August 26th of 1993 that he then became head of the interim national government. Now, as chairman of the Transitional Council, he was head of government, while President Ibrahim Babangida, military president, remained head of state. Now, as head of interim national government, after Babangida stepped aside on the 26th, Shonekan combined the two positions, namely head of state and head of government. But, I say but, there were concerns considering some of the provisions in the decree setting up the interim national government. And I do recall, because at the time I was editor of The Guardian on Sunday, there was a lead story we published. In fact, I was the author of that story. Questions persist on who is C in C, who is the commander-in-chief. That because there were murmurs as to the role of Abacha, who was Minister of Defense and Chief of Defense Staff, as to whether he was superior to the head of the NG. And a statement was eventually issued clarifying the position that there was no dispute whatsoever that Chief Shonekan was head of government, head of state, and commander-in-chief of the armed forces of the Federal Republic. Right. Now, further down, the matter went to court. There were some persons who challenged the legality of the ING, and the court ruled that the ING was illegal, which was one of the reasons Abacha gave in the school speech of November 17th. But later on, a decree was issued reversing that court judgment, which was why Ernest Shonekan can still be referred to today as a former head of state.
All right, Kingsley, in fact, thank you for the clarification, and I do hope that Senator Ida has also taken notes. But my question, and it will probably be the last question, and I'm going to ask Mr. Terra here. We've all talked about glowingly about the life and times of late Chief Ernest Shonekan, and we heard from the former military head of state Yakubu Gowon as well. But my question is, how did all that he did impact on the grassroots people? The grassroots people.
Grassroots. Well, the truth is, he was more or less, interim. He didn't have enough time, to really impact on the people generally, because as all the others have contributed, including Kingsley, there was tension in the land, and he made a sacrifice. In fact, it takes somebody with guts and to be able to make such a sacrifice, because the tension was so much, and people need to appreciate that about the man, and the fact that if he had been a provincial person, he wouldn't have taken up the appointment. So he was looking at the global picture as a nationalist, to make sure that his country is at peace, because if there's no peace, we are all joking about development. If he had been allowed, to stay at least even for an additional 1 year, the impact on the common people would have, well, you can even say that he was able to impact on the common people in the sense that despite the fact that people were engineering discontent, you know, to brand the government as not being capable or whatever, there was some level of peace, much more better than what it was, you know, immediately after the annulment. And that's an impact. He was already, you know, trying to forge economic policies, you know, that will make the people, you know, to reap the benefits of the economic policy and have it. And mark you, I was a personal aide just as others, and we met, and this man was already preparing, you know, a template for a full democratic governance. Not that he was interested in becoming an elected, because, I mean, he wasn't a politician, so how could he have even stood for election? So, you know, so bringing peace to the people and even trying to forge a program, economic program that will make the people to be able to make their livelihood without any hindrance. I mean, those are the impact, you know.
All right.
The fact that he looked at Nigeria as his constituency. Right. That has been his life anyway.
All right, Shola Tere and all the other guests, time flies so fast. We would like to appreciate your being with us today as we have looked at the life and times of the late Chief Ernest Shonekan. Shola Tere, former Executive Director News of the Nigerian Television Authority, former spokesperson to Chief Shonekan, and also former State House correspondent. Deep thanks for being around. Ben Shimang, current Director of News, Voice of Nigeria, also former State House correspondent at Dodan Barracks and also at Aso Villa. Jide Ojo, regular on Good Morning Nigeria, public affairs analyst. Thanks a lot for your perspective. And Senator Ibrahim Ida Sadauna Kasida, we appreciate you for being with us. We have to apologize to both your good self and Professor Pat Utomi for the glitches that we had in your Zoom connection. Our program, of course, wraps up at 9 o'clock. We do hope that there will be some other opportunity. Professor Pat Utomi, you keep your gunpowder dry. You still had a lot to say about the enterprise side of the late Chief Ernest Shonekan, and of course, the interface of public and private sectors. Pat Utomi, Professor of Political Economy and Management expert, deep appreciation for being with us on Good Morning Nigeria today. So that's it on the program. Thanks. We're back on Monday, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. Enjoy your weekend. I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I'm Claire Adilabu Abdul Razak. The fight against rape and rapists is still on. We do enjoy you to join us. Bye-bye.